This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, true seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road, Jack, Finding the Zodiac. I'd like to welcome to the show today, Harriet Suchet. Good morning.
Yo, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing okay. I'm going to put you back on loudspeaker. That's probably going to work better today. Okay. I'm doing fine.
Good. We were finally at the Exorcist Letter, which I was extremely excited. I thought we were going to get there last week, but unfortunately, we ran a little bit over. So I know that when we left off, we were reading Dennis Kaufman's book, in which case he was discussing the fact that his mother was set up on a date with Jack Terrence with her sister Martha and her new brother-in-law Ronald. I don't know if this was the blind date, the date that they were introduced. Again, I hadn't really had any information that supported or showed that Jack was in Nora's life, and at least not as early as 1971, even though we know he made that transfer to the South Lake Tahoe area. Dennis's recollection was 1971. But now in 73, 74, we're starting to actually see pictures with Jack and Dawn in the mix of what's going on with Nora and Dennis Kaufman. And of course, one of the biggest memories that Dennis had was of Jack and Nora seeing the Exorcist movie, and then this subsequent letter coming out in January 30th of 1974. I don't know how much information you have or what you were aware of as far as Dennis was concerned with meeting Nora, but you were under the impression that was 1971 as well, correct?
Yeah, that was, I think, before Exorcist Letter, but because Dennis says he will never forget that night that Jack comes home with a busted up shoulder, and, then Jack is saying, well, I have to be here, blah, blah, blah. So Dennis said he never forgot that part. So we got two things going on here, and as far as the
I don't know. I don't think I've hit the accident yet with the busted shoulder. So I know we talked.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That The Exorcist came out after that alleged accident, which we know he had something happen to him. So that's because I just, what I'm getting at is the movie. I went to see The Exorcist, and I was a teenager. Any kid that even heard or saw it, even the previews, it left an effect on your mind and your memory. So anyways, that's what I'm getting at, because that was pretty horrific.
Let's cover this. We do know that they do admit in the FBI FOIA archives that this is one of the known letters from the Zodiac Killer. It had a postmark date of 1/29/1974. It was received January 30th of 1974. The FBI or the SFPD lab was able to pull and process for DNA. They did find cells. Does not indicate how many or where the cells were lifted from. But we also see a new addition to self-gummed stamps at this point with this letter. So licking of the stamps, which we know that Jack had his little spittoon that he had everybody spit in, so that when he would seal an envelope or wet a stamp, he would just stick his fingers. This makes me almost want to gag. Stick his fingers in this pot of spit and seal his envelopes or his stamps. rather
Must have been
disgusting.
drunk when he did that.
I don't know about being drunk by any means, but to have people,
No.
I can't even. Okay, I can't. Let's just go past it. I can't
Yeah.
do that. Ah,
Yes.
so the letter says, I saw and think The Exorcist, in quotes, was the best satirical comedy that I have ever seen. Now, of course, based on what you just said, Harriet, I mean, this was a scary movie for back in the day. I mean, I remember it having an impression on me, but a satirical comedy, I thought, we've seen them make satirical comedies from it since then, but I don't think that anybody else in their right mind would have seen that as a comedy.
Yeah.
He says, so the letter goes on to say, signed yours truly. He plunged himself into the billowy wave, and an echo arose from the suicide's grave. Tit willow, tit willow, tit willow. P.S. If I do not see this note in your paper, I will do something nasty, which you know I'm capable of doing. And then we have these funky little doodles or drawings that we have at the bottom of this. And he says, me, 37, and SFPD, 0. So he's now giving the tally saying SFPD has nobody, and he has 37 victims. I'm taking it from this particular communication. Let's see here. So it's so some of the things that make it consistent with other letters that we've seen so far is the media and movie reference, which is something we saw in the Patricia Houts letter in regards to Sherry Jo Bates. We see that it's a suicide note, much like the Lipstick Killer, Black Dahlia with the Sorry Mary letter and more. And of course, the Sorry Mary letter was attempting to make it look like he had walked off into his own billowy grave, if you will, by walking off into the ocean to commit suicide. So plunged himself into a billowy wave from this particular communication is a cross-reference to the pretend suicide note, Dear Mary. And the Dear Draft Board letter that talks about the waves of rabbits. So we're seeing waves as another one of those commonalities through the actual communications. Now, plunged was also used in the Sherry Jo Bates murder letter to describe how he used his knife when he plunged it into her chest. And the characters that we're seeing, or this doodle drawing that we're seeing at the bottom, is very similar to characters that were found on a soy barrel bottle that was taken from victim Kim Allen. And we know that Kim Allen was most recently one of the victims that we've spoken about in the last couple weeks. So it is kind of keeping in connection with the crimes that we're talking about and the letters. Now, go ahead.
What I'm getting at is the way this is all being done. You're even finding it. It's a version of code recapping to try to get the message out. This is from Jack, and he's got something to say.
He's always got something to say.
Yeah. So
he's got the printer else statement, which is, again, one of those things that instilled in my mind as a document examiner that these messages were in order to get messages elsewhere. So he's consistently saying, you're going to print this, you're going to put it on the first page. I was watching something the other day. It was kind of interesting. And they were talking about some mob guy that had been killed and how he and how the media picked these up so quickly. And they had mentioned that the newspapers never missed a mob killing. That was great for their paper. You know, if somebody had been killed in the mob, then that was making front page somewhere. It was a very interesting concept, but something we see that's actually happening here with the Zodiac case. The 940 zip code that is found on this is, and I've been finding this out lately, and I know that you helped me with the L, which was something to do with nothing flammable, obviously, because it was airmail. And the zip code 940 is basically kind of like a master location where whenever any mail is dropped into a mailbox, outside of a person's home or at a business or something like that, these are all gathered and taken to a central location. And the 940 was one of those zip codes that I found for the San Francisco area where an anonymous letter had been mailed. And of course, because it had been dropped in a mailbox, It was then shuffled off to this particular central location and then mailed from there. So the 940 was actually addressed in a newspaper clipping, and that says, to the editor, from the postmark and the zip code numbers 940, it was determined that the letter was mailed Tuesday from somewhere in either San Mateo County or Santa Clara County, which is consistent with, we know Jack is now going to Santa Clara County to pick up Danny Reynolds, which was his last wife. So now he's dating Nora and with Nora, and he's picking up Danny Reynolds from CYA at around about this time, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think this is when they're all reunited.
So you're saying that you found that the SLA letter envelope, they believe, was 940 or 910?
I'm on The Exorcist. I'm not on SLA.
Oh, The Exorcist. My bad. I will shut up now.
That's okay.
So much, because I got a whole year's of book stuff in this from 1974, just in 6 months. But anyways, keep going.
All right, so we can see on this particular envelope that there is a couple of extracurricular stamps that are on here that are not actual postage stamps, but likely some of the little messages that they like to put on these new pre-gummed stamp booklets. And we can see over here, there's wording, and then there's the 8-cent Eisenhower stamp. And of course, that kind of brings me into the whole, you've already been talking about these things being plied with something on the other side, right? So these stamps had something on it, some remedy on it, or some peyote on it, or something, right?
Yeah, he's screaming, especially under Eisenhower. It's what happened under Eisenhower. So I do have the Exorcist envelope decoded part 1 and part 2, because that was huge. If you
all right,
do you have that or don't? Yeah, do you want me to read that? Because that
well, I'm not there yet. I will usually introduce when I'm ready for you to do that. So let me just continue on. So I did actually pull this up so you could see what was going on here. These are those extra little sticky parts that are found on the book of stamps. And it says, stamps in this book have been gummed with a matte finish adhesive, which permits the elimination of the separation tissues. I didn't understand what that meant. Permits the elimination of this.
It was just to make it so when, if I understand correctly, when you were going to tear off the stamp, it was going to tear off perfectly, and you weren't going to be separating certain things. So you can, because this was all new, these self-adhesive things. So, or I'm trying to understand that part either, but it all fit into a code. Unbelievable. And
well, and it says this book contains 25 8-cent stamps, 4 on this pane and 7 each on 3 additional panes. Selling price $2. $2 for 25 stamps. What a thing. All right. So it says, so January 29th, 1974, Exorcist Letter is handwritten. Some of the things that are consistent with the rest of the Zodiac communications is we have the use of a poem, which we've seen this many times. We have hyphenation, which has been a huge thing for both Jack and the Zodiac Killer. Comedy is split. Suicides is spelled incorrectly. Well, comedy is spelled incorrectly. The demand to print, or he's going to do something nasty, claims 37 victims. I had not tallied the victims at this point because we have so many unsolved murders. I don't know that our numbers are going to collectively match, since we appear to have several different.
So either.
Right. So I was going to say, even if I go ahead.
No, I was just saying I'm agreeing, but I found it all be code, just unbelievable. This one, the letter itself was easy for me to do.
Gotcha. All right, so the envelope is.
Can I quickly point out something about what we think are the ink blobs? I got this years ago. Somebody was saying, and I think it's associated with theydon'tLikeUs.com, that when you rearranged it, it came out as JFKQ. So I ignored that for years. But once I applied this, it came out as JFKQ, and it really fit and helped. It was like a code key. It helped complete the solve.
Well, aside from the actual little images that he drew on there, we also see this
Mhm.
ink dot with a trail coming down it and another ink
Uh-huh.
dot. These were those little tiny pieces of doodlings that were occurring, especially on the letter where Dennis was under the impression that Robert Graysmith had altered it and gotten rid of the ink blots in order to make some changes and alterations to that belltop A that we were talking about last week.
Mhm.
So it is not unheard of to see these ink dots or these heavy, grinding dots, as we'd call them in graphology, where the doodler is just sitting there kind of, doodling, not even thinking about what it is that he's doing. So to state that those ink blobs on the Annihilation Letter were anything more than a bad print is ridiculous, because we see them occurring all over these particular messages. All right,
Mhm.
so let's see here. The envelope postmarked January 29th, 1974 went to the San Francisco Chronicle, read, "Please rush to editor." So again, movie media reference and comment on it, just like Patricia Hout's letters in regards to Sherry Jo Bates. We had this particular letter followed up by a murder on February 1st of 1974 with Brenda Merchant. She was found in a rural ditch in Marysville, California. So again, still staying within this nearby Sacramento area. She had been stabbed to death, semi-nude, and same area as Lane and Derryberry. So found in a rural ditch. Did you have any information on Brenda Merchant? I don't know how this
No, I
got snuck
started
in.
on it. I started to try to find it, and all I was finding was the doodler. So they seem to move out of Robert Graysmith's list, and so I didn't get to those. I just said, well, I'm going to have to just move on to quickly what the doodler's list now is, which is the Black Zodiac. Dig deep on that one. But it's all connected. But no, I'm sorry. I'm like, I need to get to these list people. The
What do you mean the
Graysmith list.
doodler, the Black Zodiac? What?
They called. Okay, you have the long list of names that were known as Robert Graysmith's Zodiac list, which includes Kim Wendy Allen, just who you named, Merchant, and a whole list of other people. But over the years, the Graysmith list went bye-bye, and then they started saying that this is the doodler's list. But I saw quite a few years ago that they were considering still Zodiac cases, so he was known as the Black Zodiac. But good luck in finding that too. That was when
What?
Dennis
I don't
was
understand the
living
Black
here.
Zodiac. What is the Black Zodiac
Because
supposed to mean?
because the doodler is a person of color, and but it was Robert Graysmith's Zodiac list people. And so they kind of changed things, but it's still coming up with the connection to the Zodiac I found, because it's Bill Hilliard. That's what long story is. It keeps naming Bill Hilliard as the person who was doing the Graysmith list of people.
Huh.
Anyways, yeah, it's supposed to be confusing.
I
But
hadn't heard them.
saw it
Okay.
years ago, and I ignored it. Black Zodiac? No, Jack was white. But anyways.
Right? All right. Well, total victims 37. And after 3 years of silence, we have Danny Reynolds goes to CYA from 1971 or 72 through 74. We have a newspaper article in regards to this particular letter, and it says that let's see, woman in the wounding of her male companion. Okay, so police believe that the Zodiac has an eye problem because he wore glasses even under his hood. There are also indications that he had some connection to the military. He wore a military type crew cut or short hair. His pants had pleats at a time when that cut was not fashionable. He committed several of his murders in the Vallejo area near Mare Island and one near the Presidio, and his messages showed some knowledge of cryptography. Tashi said he leans towards in addition to the fact, what?
I lost you there for about 20 seconds.
You didn't.
Anyway.
You didn't lose me. You just interrupted. Sorry.
No, I
Okay.
didn't
So
hear
with
anything.
Oh, Tashi said that he leans toward the theory that Zodiac may have been connected with the Navy at one time, in addition to the fact that he wore a Navy-type windbreaker jacket for the Stein killing, the detective notes. 3 codes were used in his messages, and some had nautical signs. One sign is used by weathermen and Navy people. In consultation with psychologists, Tashi has also come to the conclusion that Zodiac is a high school graduate with a giant ego locked in an inconspicuous identity. I feel he probably has a menial job and is very lonely, not around many loved ones. Although a handwriting expert once concluded Zodiac was impotent and afraid of women, the investigator says the facts only show that he apparently enjoyed killing defenseless people. There was no sexual activity said, no molestation, no mutilation. The key to solving the case, Tashi said, lies in Zodiac's ego and his somewhat distinctive lettering style, not in his coded messages, one of which remains unbroken. Zodiac seemed obsessed with publicizing his exploits. At first, he communicated with smaller newspapers such as Vallejo Times-Herald. Then he sent letters to the 2 large daily newspapers in San Francisco, and later sent one letter to the Los Angeles Times, the largest West Coast daily, complaining that the San Francisco papers relegated his messages to the back pages. As a result, however, his lettering has been seen by people all over California. I hope he'll communicate with a friend or family member and slip, Tashi said. I hope something rings a bell in someone's head and they'll pass on a letter to police. I'm counting on a slip of mind where he feels after 9 or 10 years that he's safe, and he'll write a boastful letter to a friend. Medical people and psychologists say it will come out. Tashi believes that Zodiac has not killed since 1969. Although the mystery man increased his total to 37 on January 30th, 1974, after nearly a 3-year silence. At that time, Zodiac's ego was apparent as he penned The Exorcist as bad comedy, although it caused many people to vomit. Later in 1974, he sent 2 messages to the Chronicle without disclosing his identity. One urged the newspaper to show some concern for public sensibilities by dropping an ad for a movie called Badlands. The letter, signed a citizen, went on to say this kind of murder glorification can only be deplorable at best. In a postcard signed the Red Phantom, Red with Rage, Zodiac criticized columnist Count Marco for his superior attitude and demanded cancellation of the column. He got his pleasure by telling us about the murders, Tashi said. My guess is he hasn't been killing. Ego is what forced him to kill and write letters, knowing the media would broadcast and print it. If that's so, then why hasn't Zodiac killed in recent years, and why has he been silent so long? One theory is that he has been in and out of prison, jails, or mental institutions. I think he is in a period of remission and that some symptoms abated, Tashi said. Perhaps during this period, he had no desire to kill. There was a previous, though shorter, period of inactivity discovered during investigation of 5 Zodiac slayings from December 20th, 1968 to October 11th, 1969. Police determined that the Zodiac was behind the October 30th, 1966 slaying of Riverside City College cheerleader Sherry Jo Bates, whose throat was slashed by a man who first sabotaged her car in the college parking lot. A janitor inadvertently found a poem scratched in a library study on a desk. So again, there's that poetic reference all the way back to Sherry Jo Bates. And that brings us to your solve, Harriet, which... This one says The Exorcist Letter decoded, and it begins facsimile to Examiner Hearst. Do you have that one available?
Yeah.
Go ahead and read it.
It's March 7th. I sent the Gilbert Sullivan Japanese opera duet, or whatever you call it, as White Gottlieb Push.
Okay, that's not the one. That's not the one I'm looking at. I'm looking at one that says messages 3774, facsimile to Examiner Hearst. I'm ill, located at UC Davis. Do you have that one? I don't understand why there's more than one.
Is that the SLA letter?
No, we're on the Exorcist Letter.
Well, this one is the Exorcist Letter that I'm trying to read, but it's the envelope and the letter. Oh my God, come on now. I have it. Come on. I just had it. Well, you go ahead and read it. I just had it, and I think I just dropped the page.
All right.
Uh-oh.
It says,
Are you there?
Yes. Says, I'm ill, located at UC Davis. I need the little list, modus operandi, LSD, peyote, Alcoholics Anonymous vow, by clock, sequence, Frank Print, New York, and San Francisco files. I saw Sidney Gottlieb and George White plunge Olson out the window. Where is the remedy? Did Senator Prescott Bush, weary wifey, save RX on Ohio Washington 2-cent stamp? Aid. I can't read your writing here. Chip Bolin. Oh, a shitty thing. Oh,
Chip Bolin.
I don't know what aid. What is aid? Otley?
Yeah, that's Aid Ottilie Lundgren. Yep.
Gotcha. Chip Bolin. Oh, a shitty thing. Poe. Have a OP midnight dark room. Latitude, longitude is San Jose. Terrence.
Yeah, now I have it. but you got that. He's just screaming. He's like, where is the cure? Just like Toshi is reportedly saying that he's thinking that he's in some kind of institution or he's, away somewhere. So that's what this SLA letter is that he's trying to get the message across that he's supposed to have the cure, and he's wondering where is it.
Well, and I did pick out kind of what you said there, have an OP midnight dark room. So Operation Midnight dark room, is that what that is supposed to mean? Okay, so and the thing that stood out there for the dark room is that long before any of these solves came about, Dennis had told me that Jack had a house in San Jose, and in the basement there was a dark room where he would process images and photographs and film and negatives and things of that nature. So it is kind of interesting that at this point in time, 1974, we're still seeing that changeover. We know he's back and forth between the Santa Clara area, the San Jose area, and back and forth to the South Lake Tahoe area, but that you are actually coming out with messages that indicate that he has a dark room, and the latitude longitude for that is San Jose. So that does coincide with something that I was told specifically by Dennis.
Yeah, this is what is amazing me. Now I'm not on the page, he's calling this. So the previous ones, 2 months earlier, they were calling them telephone letters. So, but facsimile to Examiner Hearst, and he's trying to get help. He's saying what a shitty thing to do, and then he's saying that he has, just like you said. The latitude and longitude in San Jose, he's got this stuff that has to do with Frank Olson, and he's seen that Sidney Gottlieb and George White plunge Olson out the window.
Well, that's been coming the messages for quite some time. Okay, so let's see. Oh, I said that's been coming up in the messages for quite some time, him talking about them pushing Olson out the window.
Yeah, he keeps repeating this. So this is just another clue, another hint that this is coming from Jack, and he's trying to get messages across. But this time, I'm seeing a series of them going to the Hearst people. They're seeing Nixon. Nixon's about to he's about to resign. Wow, the deja vu of what's happening this year. But anyways.
All right, so now I have the part 2 decoded message of March 7th, sent the Gilbert Sullivan Japanese opera duet. You have that?
Yep, that's the one I was about to read. Come on now. Oh, God.
This is why I call you, so that you can have this stuff like already tabbed out and ready to go, so that we're not searching
That's what
for it
I
at the
have.
time.
That's what I have, but it's some. Oh God. I just had it, but it's in my book. So the part 2, The Exorcist, right? Okay, yes. Yeah, here it is. It's March 7th, sent the Gilbert Sullivan Japanese opera duet as White Gottlieb pushed Frank Olson out the window. Frank, sorry for printing the SA 42 OSS contact surgeon Ishii, Secret East Asia, San Francisco, New York Office of Strategic Services, Biology Documents Files, SEIO Files, 1782 Secede Zodiac Code. He's saying that's the code he's using. It's, from Nixon. VP Trump Nixon, Price Administration, Chicago.
You mean Truman?
Sky.
You said Trump. You got Trump on the brain. VP Truman Nixon.
Did I say Truman? Oh my
you
God!
said Trump.
Did I say Trump?
You said
oh my
Trump.
God, Truman! My apologies. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, Degnan Herons UTI under the influence LSD-100 OSS made sodium P. I think it's 14 milligrams truth serum coerce herons, the H for herons, to confess. Say dismember, and then it's Hilliard murder. Suzanne IO, that's the documents of order. DE, that's Dwight Eisenhower, Saudi execute order. Shitty CIA, Bin Laden G. Yeah, they go way back. Crash planes, 9/11/01, Twin Towers, WTC, World Trade Center, airline, United American flights 11-175. Poe, a shitty thing to do. Please, asshole, answer if New York, NY Post editor's son, Prescott Bush, if an Asian Shiro did save 1902 Demosthenes date, Washington face picture, Bureau of Printing and Engraving, 20250. That's the zip code of Washington. Anyways, Carmine Red, Cincinnati, Ohio, by the Shemak vending machine. The matte adhesive contains set peyote remedy. Stamps, my Petit Philippe atomic clock, Mount Diablo, 3690 feet. ET, I believe that's for Eastern time, 12 a.m., 999. That's the reverse it time. And it's signed Terrence. And he also, I put in the bottom, he's got the November 28, 1953 date. That's when Frank Olson was pushed out the window.
Huh. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got all of that out of the envelope.
Now, I noticed up at the top, you said Gilbert Sullivan. You said Gilbert Sullivan Japanese opera duet. Is that the reference to the Mikado?
Yes. Yep. He's saying he's trying to clarify that he sent that. So this is supposed to be a way, if they decode this, to know that this is the real deal. This is the real guy. And then he's trying to repeat what happened years earlier. And then he is looking for, not just for the cure for himself, they're trying to cure what's to happen in the future, because, he's not going to be flying the United Airlines. He's not going to be flying he's trying to stop what's going to happen in the future. So it's not just for him, but he's trying to cure himself at that point. But this is supposed to be the quick cure. So can you imagine all these people walking around that were MK Ultra'd, and probably didn't even know?
Right. Well, because some people didn't opt in for this particular project. This was actually perpetrated on some people, like patients in mental hospitals and so forth. So,
yeah, they were dropped. They were dropped the LSD stuff, and then they were programmed, and it probably only took a couple of minutes. 30 years later, they don't know why they're acting funny. Anyways, keep going.
Well, on February 6th of 1974, we have another airtel from the FBI FOIA files to the director of the FBI from the Sacramento office, the subject being the Zodiac extortion of Sacramento. It says, for information of the Los Angeles office, commencing in August 1969, an individual who has written several letters to newspapers in Northern California, some of which contain cryptographic messages, and who signs himself Zodiac, has been subject in at least 6 unsolved murders in California. Because of some of the details contained in his letters pertaining to the murders, agencies which investigated the cases have come to the confirmed conclusion that the Zodiac is responsible. The murders for which the Zodiac has taken credit are as follows: 10/30/66, Riverside, California, 1 murder. December 20th, 1968, Vallejo, California, 2 murders. July 4th, 1969, Vallejo, California, 1 murder. September 27th, 1969, Lake Berryessa, Napa County, California, 1 murder. And October 11th, 1969, San Francisco, California, 1 murder. So we're seeing that there's the admission that the Sherry Jo Bates is indeed a victim of the Zodiac Killer, and that the Riverside PD will be submitting writings and latent prints to the FBI for examination. This goes on to talk about, let's see, I'm just going to short or brief it. Let's see here. As a result, the FBI laboratory has on file several samples of handprinting and writing prepared by the Zodiac, which samples were furnished by the above police agencies. I thought it was interesting, and I notated here that the FBI FOIA file shows that they have both letters and fingerprints on file for the suspect. And then, of course, I also questioned, so how come they claim they cannot do the comparison on Jack Terrence themselves if they're acting as, or if they're stating that they're in possession of all of this information? Another item in this FOIA file was the FBI Identification Division latent fingerprint section has on file some latent prints developed from question documents and other sources. I wonder what the other sources are, and made available by the above police agencies. Some or all of these latent prints may belong to the Zodiac. So again, how come they claim not having the original documents of the Zodiac Killer was a reason to come to an inconclusive opinion on Jack Terrence's handwriting when they are obviously using letters on so many instances throughout their FOIA file to complete examinations on other suspects? So it didn't really make a lot of sense that they told me that they needed the original documents in order to complete or make a solid identification or exclusion on Jack Terrence, when clearly they've not been operating this entire time off of the original documents as they're doing their exams. See, for a period of approximately 3 years, no correspondence had been received from the Zodiac. However, on 1/29/74, a letter was received by a San Francisco newspaper believed to have been prepared by the Zodiac. San Francisco office is in the process of obtaining a copy of this letter and any latent fingerprints developed on it for submission to the FBI Laboratory and Identification Division. So there it says it, boom, right there. Prepared by the Zodiac. The San Francisco office is in the process of obtaining a copy of this letter and any latent fingerprints developed on it for submission to the FBI. So why will the FBI take copies of letters for something, but not? But then turn around and tell me when I submit good handwriting, good original documents for Jack Terrence, tell me that they can't do that without having the original Zodiac letters. I think that was just a sham. They were basically lying straight to my face.
Yes, I got solved letter thing that Jack, that they knew that Jack was a Zodiac years ago, years and years ago. So, and I'm seeing some of it during pre-Nixon resignation, that some people in the FBI, like G. Gordon Liddy, I believe he was connected to the FBI, were in on a lot of these communications. And so there was a purpose, and the long story short was to bring down Hoffa and Giancana. So then, of course, here you are years later. I'd like to get my hands on this, so I can do a physical comparison. Oh, no, we don't have access. We don't have, Dennis was frustrated with that too. He was just like you read. He said, they have this, they have the communications, but they're not willing to share it. So,
Well, just short of even having the communications, my bigger question is the fact that they literally are operating off of copies. And here's the thing. I operate, I'd say 95% of my cases are operated off of copies because it's the opposing side that has the original, or the original doesn't exist because they've committed fraud. And you never ever put forth the original document when you've cut and pasted something, or when you've manipulated, or when you've simulated somebody else's handwriting. All of these things are super detectable on an original document. So it's quite frequent that I'm working off of a copy to begin with. It does not preclude me the ability to do my job simply because it's a copy. So when they lied to me and said, oh, well, we have to have the original Zodiac letters in order to do that comparison, they were lying through their teeth. Most of the time, they're not being given this original document. It's being kept under wraps because it's evidence. You don't want to work. The same for me. When I am given an original document, the first thing I do is I scan it in and I work off the scan. I'm not going to jeopardize the integrity of an original document by putting my hands all over it, or doing anything that might jeopardize that particular evidence. So I think this warrants repeating. March 22nd of 1971, Zodiac goes silent after mailing a postcard about sought victim number 12. Donna laughs at the same time. Jack is appearing in court in Santa Clara County and placed on 1-year probation with no guns. Danny Reynolds goes to CYA for 3 years. Now we have the pop out, 3 years of silence. January 29th, 1974, Jack and Nora are living in Mount Auckham, Placerville, California, when Danny Reynolds is released from CYA. Jack picks Danny up in San Jose, California, and the Exorcist Letter was mailed from the San Mateo County or the Santa Clara County area on that very same day. So I think that Jack is busy with these other crimes during this 3-year period. We have the DB Cooper going on. We have the DC Freeway Phantom. Good morning, Nolan. I just saw you.
Good morning. Sorry, I'm
good
late.
morning, Nolan.
That's okay. That's okay. You're catching up. We were just visiting the Exorcist Letter today, so we've been primarily kind of hung up on that, but more great solves from Harriet as well. So to continue with this particular FOIA file, a review of the Sacramento file in this matter discloses that no question writing or latent prints which may have been developed in the Riverside, California murder have been submitted to the FBI Laboratory or Identification Division. The leads, the FBI Identification Division latent fingerprint section, is requested to advise how many latent prints believed to be of the Zodiac are available, and if there is any possibility of classifying these latent prints to the extent of permitting a search through the FBI fingerprint files in an effort to identify the Zodiac. Los Angeles, at Riverside, California, Will from the local authorities who investigated the murder believed committed by the Zodiac obtained copies of any handwriting or handprinting attributable to him and photographs of any latent prints which may have been developed in that case, and submit these to the FBI Laboratory and Identification Division for appropriate examination and comparison with previously submitted samples. Armed and dangerous. So the Riverside PD never submitted files or latent prints to the FBI for examination up to this point. And the Riverside PD indicates they will be sending this information to the FBI crime department. Whew.
Yeah, and just and what amazes me is we've had all these years, even later, that the Zodiac can't be an FBI suspect. And we're hearing nothing about, I mean, it's just nothing. The FBI has all the files. We know. So Zodiac is an FBI case.
Oh, absolutely. All the way up until 1991, which then they just, for whatever miraculous reason, shut it down and stop producing any more files on it, stop producing any more memorandums on it. From what I can tell, and I don't know if they claim to have submitted everything back. Here's the thing. If they were given copies and photographic copies of fingerprints and then copies of the communications, what was there to return? I heard a couple times, I think, from the FBI office that they had returned the evidence. There was no evidence. They were never in possession of anything that was original to be returned to local law enforcement. Everything they had were copies. So where's this information? Where are these fingerprints? Where are these copies of these letters? We now are climbing on to, it looks like February 13th of 1974, and Jack's appeal is finally awarded. The findings and award from Workmen's Compensation Appeals Board of the state of California. It shows here's the proof that the timeline with Dennis and Dewhurst is probably about a year and a half off. But if Jack just received the award in February 1974, he did not have any income for quite some time. So it was a question as to whether or not he could have bought and moved into the suggested property in Mount Occam, as was suggested, unless he was making money in some other avenue, which could have been him screaming out loud for payment for these murders that he's committing and these jobs that he's doing. Again, like I said, he seems to be able to move around and buy properties, even though he doesn't appear to have anything more than a menial job, just as Tashi had stated in that last article. Let's see, this would make it Christmas of 1974, which must have some meaning since our author chose to write it on the next letter. And as if to say, ha, 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 I've got you. This injury was likely from his deeds and not an on-the-job injury at all. So this is him finally being awarded, which for what we believed was the 1971-1972 injury at South Lake Tahoe Linen Company. So, and it was filed February 13th, 1974, followed by the receipt of this next letter in February 14th of 1974. Let's see, temporary disability indemnity at $101 per week, beginning February 7th of 1973 to and including July 8th of 1973. So this is a whole nother injury. I mean, if he's being awarded workman's comp for 1973, we're looking at a completely different injury once again. Let's see. Under the circumstances, temporary disability will be found to July 8th, 1973, the date of the motorcycle accident. So here's that motorcycle accident that we were talking about.
Yes, I think that's Jack. I mean, Dennis says that was the night of when Jack comes home, the night of D.B. Cooper. So, you know, they could. I think we're going there that that they're lying. The document people are lying, and they're just, you know, I think they're just going to award Jack for a 1973 thing when it was actually a year or two earlier. That's what.
Well,
I'm
it says
getting at.
defendant. It did, and I don't know how they backed this up to this point, but it says defendant is entitled to credit for temporary disability indemnity paid for 2 days worked by applicant in December of 1972. So yeah, they just keep backing this up, and it's not really making a lot of sense to me. But I was under the impression that his his work comp injury was based from 1972 work with South Lake Tahoe Linen Company. Well, that brings us to the
there in 1970. He was working there 71 when he, you know, kidnapped Donna Lass, and then it's the year later with D.B. Cooper. So, you know, it's the dates we know can be kind of fudged a little bit.
Right.
They are trying to do this for our Zodiac.
Yeah, go ahead, Nolan.
And the one before that, I need to look at the caption because I'm see who's the defendant. Jack is the plaintiff, right?
It's Lake Tahoe City Linen, and that's what I'm saying. He was only working with Lake Tahoe City Linen up, at least I believed, up through 1972. So yes, this is against Lake Tahoe City Linen, in which case I don't believe he was. So then, how was he awarded for February of 73?
To July of 73. Yeah, that's odd.
Very odd.
If he didn't work there in 73.
Well, I got a call from it's the Donna Lass thing where he's saying that when he is going to kill but Giancana, that he's the linen driver today. That's in 1975. So that's probably one of his covers, you know, still working as a linen driver occasionally.
Huh. So you think he was still working for South Lake Tahoe in 75?
Just briefly to kill Giancana. It's part of a cover. He's still in the intel community. I see.
Well, and linen companies were definitely a mob thing. being in South Lake Tahoe where the casinos are and being a linen company would even be more connected to the mob, I would say, than any other random linen company throughout the United States that wasn't so closely related to casinos. All right, well, that puts us on our last minute, and we did not make it to the SLA letter, so that will be what we start out with next week. That one gets extremely interesting because we have letters to Hearst, we have Patty Hearst that's being kidnapped, we have Martin Luther King that's being talked about. Like, this is going to be a very, very busy letter for us. But is there anything anybody would like to say last minute before we climb off?
I'm going to say God bless America, and everybody vote whatever you need to do this year.
We're not at voting time right now. I just asked for a sign off, like goodbye, you guys. What was that, Nolan?
Fine, I'll be on time next week.
All right, we'll see you guys then. Everybody take care and have a wonderful weekend.
You too.